same type of steppe politics was simple enough. When one of the tribes became too strong, the other tribes were united against it. The variety of unions was explained by a large number of inter-clan relations, unity or dissension of clans in the same tribe, as well as friendship or rivalry of leaders. Transitions of his army were not measured in kilometers, but in degrees of latitude and longitude. The whole Christian world quaked of one name, Genghis Khan, and Muslims were convinced that all his actions were actions of a supernatural creature. Rustam Rahmanaliyev, The Turkic Empire, Great Civilization. Centuries ago, a man won half of the world. His name was Genghis Khan. He was the greatest conqueror in the world history arena. The nomad, whose scope of activities was limited to hunting and cattle grazing, crushed the power of 3 empires. The man who had never seen the city life and had never been familiar with writing made up a code of laws for 50 nations. And his successors were also worthy of his great ancestor. Genghis Khan's son began to control the empire from Armenia to Korea and from Tibet to the Volga, and his grandson reigned over the half of the world. The birth of Temujin, the firstborn in the family, accompanied by wonderful omens. Yesugei-Baatur was in a campaign against one of the Tatar tribes, and this tribe's leader, named Temujin, was captured. And at that time, Oelun gave birth to a boy, who in his hand tightly clutched a blood clot, like a red stone. In honor of the success, the newborn baby was named after captured Temujin.
Да, его рождение тоже не простое.
His birth was also difficult. According to a legend, he was born with a blood clot in his hand. When it was opened, everybody was shocked. He would be either a great warrior or a great military commander. It was an omen. Genghis Khan's birth, of course, was later shrouded in myths to give some faithfulness to his birth. On the eve of the 3rd millennium, in 2000, scientists started to analyze everything that had happened in the world. And on the eve of the 3rd millennium, members of nomadic environment were recognized as persons of the 1st and the 2nd millennia. Attila was declared the man of the 1st millennium, and Genghis Khan was declared the man of the 2nd millennium. Indeed, after these two personalities, after Genghis Khan and Attila, the world, Europe, the Eurasian steppes moved to a whole new level of socio-political development, social development and spiritual development.
Новый уровень общественно-политического развития, социального развития, духовного развития.
What a pity that the superhuman glory of his age, Genghis Khan, drew his bow aiming only at eagles. Mao Zedong. Future Genghis Khan was born under the roof of a very modest felt youth. Mongolian Chronicle reported that the newborn had come into the world with a blood clot clutched in his right hand. According to the Turkic Mongolian tradition, it was an omen of the glorious future on the battlefield. Future Genghis Khan's father, Yesugei-Baatur, was the leader of Kiyat's clan, branch of Borjagin's family. Temujin, on his father's side, was a great-grandson of powerful Kublai Khan who dared to fight not only against the Tatars but also against the Chinese. Kublai Khan was one of the first who sought to unite the Mongol tribes. Yesugei-Baatur was on a par with his grandfather in courage and also waged wars against the Tatars and Tsin army. He had a huge popularity in the steppe society. However, when he decided to marry, he had to reckon with the clan's customs that forbade to marry within their own clan. According to the version stated in Secret Story, Yesugei met his wife at the very romantic circumstances. During falconry, he saw a rider from Merkid tribe who carried to his camp a young beautiful woman sitting in a cart. He rushed after them in pursuit. Merkid disappeared, and Yesugei captured beautiful Oelun. Anyway, the beauty of Oelun tribe became Yesugei-Baatur's wife. The protracted blood feud between the Merkids and the Borjigin was a result of this episode. When Yesugei-Baatur won her away from the Merkids, she had already been betrothed. Moreover, she loved this man, according to legends. And when he brought her to his encampment, she was very worried. She sobbed and cried. But then she resigned to her fate and became a very trustworthy and good wife.
Несмотря на то, что часто воины добывали себе...
Despite the fact that warriors often obtained wives in campaigns, they treated them mercifully. Why? Because they were their wives who brought up their children. They raised your dynasty, they fired up your hearth, they cooked food for you. And so they were not treated as captives or concubines. She was a full-fledged woman. At that time, there were such morals. That is, once you came into someone's home, there was no turning back.
Обратной дороги уже не было.
Oelun was born as a wise wife. She raised her little children like this. She ties a cap tighter. She ties the waist belt of the dress higher. She runs up and down River Non. She gathers grain by grain from the bird cherry and wild apples. Both day and night she nurtures her children. Secret Story. When Temujin was 9 years old, Yesugei went with him to seek a bride for him from a distant tribe. On the way, they met the leader of Ungirat tribe, Daisichen. He learned about the purpose of their trip and offered to ride into his camp and see his daughter, beautiful Borte. The fathers liked each other, they treated their children the same way, So an agreement was concluded shortly. Boy Temujin, Dai Sichen's future son-in-law, was to remain in his camp according to the ancient Mongolian custom. At that, Dai Sichen told Yesugei-Baatur as follows: "Last night I saw a dream that I was holding a raven as a white general gerfalcon, personifying Suldeki Yadbor Jigin, that is, I saw Genghis Khan's tribal banner." Dai Sichen. The parents mutually liked their children, and they, according to their custom, exchanged gifts. After that, they could only wait for their full age, 14-17 years, for their wedding on the assumption that during this time the betrothed would have time to know each other and consider their step ahead. Satisfied with this agreement, Yesugei-Baatur set off for home alone. On the way, a group of Tatars, making merry, invited him to visit their feast. The refusal would contradict the steppe etiquette, and Yesugei joined their revelry despite the traditional blood feud between his clan and the Tatars. After that, when he was going home, he felt bad and understood that the treacherous Tatars had put poison in his drink. He died a few days after his return. Following Yesugei's dying injunction, Munlik, whom he had appointed guardian of his family, called Temujin home. At the age of 9, Temujin stayed with his mother, 3 brothers, Kazakh, Kachun, Temuchay, and sister Temulun. From the other wife, Yesugei had 2 boys, Bektar and Belgutey. Oelun, Temujin's mother, was a courageous woman, and she tried to keep the clan under her rule, but this task was beyond her strength, since her husband's relatives didn't agree to accept her leadership. After a while, all Yesugei's relatives and vassals, including Taijiut clan, left Oelun's camp, taking away the greater part of her cattle. Even Munlik left her. Oelun left without any help with her 5 children, with her husband's second wife, her children, and a few servants. Years of hardship began for Yesugei's family, but Oelun's spirit wasn't broken. It took a lot of efforts for her to devote Temujin in everything that concerned the glorious past of his clan. The boy eagerly listened and remembered ancient legends. When she became a widow, she played a very important role in his formation, because, first of all, it was her personal example. She also took care of several orphans from different clans. And later, they became her sons, and they were sworn brothers for him. But that time, she instilled an idea into him that some time ago his ancestors Kabul Khan and his son Khatun Khan led the Mongol tribes. They were Khans, and he must return that glory and power. She told him a lot about his ancestors, based on traditions, legends, and beliefs. And she kept instilling the idea into him that he was destined to become the new Kabul Khan at a new stage of history. In Buryatia, authorities are planning to install a ute on the territory of Barguzin Temple and to erect a statue monument to Genghis Khan's mother Oelun inside the ute. Shariati Lama of Barguzin Temple, Tsiden Namzhilov. The most heartfelt pages of Secret Story were devoted to this hardest period of Oelun's life, her motherly feat. It describes how the woman of noble blood, tucking her skirt and firmly securing the cap on her head, with a pointed stick in her hand, without a break, was digging grass roots and martagon tubers, picking wild fruits from trees and bushes on the Burkan Khaldun slopes. The noble mother's son ate wild ornaments and garlic until they became the rulers. While in harsh conditions, Oelun kept her children out of pessimism and kept saying to them, "A hard-working person cannot die of hunger." All of these fell on the soul of Temujin, who meanwhile became a smart and talented young man. His enemies began to fear that he would in future become a Bahadur, able to pay them back for the humiliations experienced in childhood. Indeed, Temujin began to be aware of power growing inside him. He firmly remembered that his father had been a master of 4,000 wagons, and that, according to his ancestors' legend, Kublai Khan dared to pull the beard of Chinese Qin Emperor, as well as that Yesugei-Baatur had been a sworn brother of Togrul Khan, the powerful Kurate leader who was still alive.
Мать Чингисхана Оелун остается уникальным явлением.
Genghis Khan's mother, as well as her son, are a unique phenomenon in Mongols' history. Oelun was the first woman described in chronicles who rebelled against old customs in a nomadic society. It was such a bold move, and people moved away from her, so she couldn't infect others with her behavior. At the same time, the relatives took all the property of deceased Yesugei-Baatur, took all the cattle, and thus condemned the family to starvation. But we must give proper respect to the mother. She inspired her children by her example and became a pattern of courage for them. In addition to her 5 children, Oelun took under her wing the younger wife of her deceased husband and her 2 sons. Young Temujin would have completely lost courage if it hadn't been for his mother, who believed that her eldest son would become a great warrior. She predicted his high destiny. Not wealth, but the origin was considered more important for the Mongol of that time. Temujin was of divine origin, therefore Oelun persuaded him he deserved to be Khan, king of kings, like his brothers. By all means, she decided to raise her sons to an unattainable attitude, so all traitors and enemies would come to them with greeting. The mother's plan was probably like that.
Oelun была внутренним сильным стержнем. которая могла вокруг себя объединить, собрать не только свою семью,
Oelun had a strong internal core, and she could unite and collect around her not only her family, but also other relatives.
положения, они не передаются.
As you know, in the steppe, some social statuses were not handed down. They were gained by authority, wisdom, eloquence, and justice.
Оелун была такая женщина. Она была женщина-матриарх.
Oelun was such a woman. She was a matriarchy woman. She practically was a protector. She had strong maternal foundations. She could give everyone refuge and comfort under her protection.
И это была женщина с сильным.
She was a woman with a strong spiritual core, who knew her place in society, who knew her worth, who knew to whose youth she came, to whose family, whose children she brought up. She knew her place in the social gradation.
Градации. Тем более
Moreover, her fairness and wisdom pulled other relatives under her wing.
мудрость. Тянули
Others were afraid of it, and having robbed Genghis Khan, Temujin, they moved away.
вот этого, конечно, и испугались другие. И, обобрав Чингисхана, Темуджина, откочевали восвояси.
He loved life for its own sake and didn't torment himself searching for its meaning. He widely enjoyed it with a quiet cheerfulness, without perverted delicacy, without untamed passions. Fernand Grenard, Genghis Khan's biographer. It was not easy for Oelun's family to feed themselves. Squirrels, fish, berries were a rare occasion for the camp of several youths. The children quarreled. Temujin, who was at the age of 12 or 13, and his brother Khazar argued with Bekter and Belgutey for the caught fish and accused the latter of stealing. Oelun took a neutral position. But then a tragedy happened. One day, when the boys shot a lark and argued for it, Temujin and Khazar killed Bekter with an arrow. For Temujin was able without hesitation to kill those who opposed him. Even though he was his brother, hardship was just beginning.
Детские годы его были удивительные, да? Вот с одной стороны, он терпел невзгоды и лишения, а с другой стороны...
His childhood was amazing. On the one hand, he suffered hardships and privations. On the other, it greatly tempered his character.
По возрасту был совсем молодым, но он уже...
By the time he married Borte, he was still very young in age. But he had reached manhood greatly,
Ему было 9 лет,
because he suffered the plight. His father died when he was 9 years old.
мать его, Oelun,
Their relatives left them. His mother Oelun stayed with her children, with the second wife and her children.
были покинуты.
They were abandoned.
Как они трудно...
They hardly found their food. They had to hunt for groundhogs, badgers, and to catch fish.
охотиться на сурков, барсуков,
And this developed his physical endurance and activity,
развило в нем физическую...
because without any devices, without physical strength and help,
Потому что
they were activities that required some skills.
физической силы и мужской подмоги это были достаточно такие занятия, требовавшие сноровки определенной.
В это время, когда он находился в опале,
At that time, when he was in disgrace, he was always caught up by his relatives, brothers. He managed to escape, but he was always surprised how they found his locations very accurately. And then, when he found out that his sworn brother, Balgutei, was involved in that, he had to kill him. Of course, it was a great grief for his mother, for Balgutei's mother. But they realized that it was impossible to do without this. There was no other option. Only Balgutei's death allowed Genghis Khan to escape finally from his
Чингисхану
pursuers.
скрыться наконец-то от своих преследователей.
Jealously keeping his property and his rights, but he was generous, lavish with others. Bernard Grenard, Genghis Khan's biographer. The Thai Jews decided to eliminate this younger dangerous rival before it was too late. Their leader, Turgul Tai, who was also descendant of Borjigin clan, declared himself the ruler of the land, once occupied by Yesugei. It was the best land for pastures between the rivers Oelun and Oelun, and he began to cruelly pursue young Temujin. Temujin was 15 years old when the camp was attacked by Thai Jews, their former allies. They stated that they would go away if Temujin was given to them. 9 days and nights Temujin hid in the forest, but after all he was captured and brought to Thai Jews' leader. They put a block on the captive's neck. Applied since a very long time in China, this torture was particularly awful because the block shackled the man, forcing him to keep humiliating posture. Temujin longed for vengeance and looked for opportunity to escape. And during one of Thai Jews' feasts, Temujin managed to heal his guardian, and shackled with the block, he dived into the river and escaped from his pursuers.
В свое время, когда Чингисхан носил колодки, он сбежал.
At the time when Genghis Khan was wearing blocks, he ran away and was hiding in the water the whole day.
Увидел, где прячется Чингисхан.
During the pursuit, a blacksmith saw Genghis Khan hiding and said, "Don't worry, I will not betray you. Sit quietly." He sat there before nightfall and came to the blacksmith, who helped him to break the blocks and said, "You can take a horse, you can take a bow and arrows and go. Save yourself."
Эту возможность
He gave him the opportunity.
гнивы.
The blacksmith didn't give him a flint to get warm at night. If the next day he was asked how Genghis Khan had escaped, he would say, "He took my horse, he stole a bow and arrows." The bow used to be hung on the wall inside the ute, but all steppe people always had a flint on the belt.
У каждого степняка она с собой.
If they had discovered the flint with Genghis Khan,
У Чингисхана
the blacksmith would have been executed for complicity.
то кузнецу бы было бы не сдобровать, его казнили за соучастие.
Прошло несколько лет. Темуджин
Several years passed. Temujin quickly reached manhood and became a strong warrior. When some unknown people stole 8 of the 9 horses of his family, Temujin went after them on the only remaining horse, and with the help of another young man, whom he met on the way, was able to bring back the horses.
этой погони
His new friend decided to join Temujin's family as a military companion. His name was Bogurchi. Later, he became one of the most outstanding commanders of Genghis Khan's army. This first success, no matter how insignificant it might seem, made Temujin sensible of his own strength, and he decided to get married. But you will know about this in our next episode.